Hey everyone, it's Mr. Hollywood, and today I will be talking about episode 3 of Beast Games. And I'm just gonna go right into this review. Anyways, feel free to share your thoughts on this episode of the show. Feel free to share your thoughts on this series. What's your thoughts on the series so far? What's your thoughts on this episode? What's your thoughts on certain outcomes? I'd love to hear all of that down below in the comments. But anyways, episode 3 of Beast Games. What an episode. Let's just start off with the very beginning. So in the previous episode, 4 team captains were debating whether they should sacrifice their whole team for $1 million. Obviously, this is the episode where you found out what their decision was. And it's like, as I was seeing if they're gonna sacrifice their team or not, my first thoughts were, it's like, in some ways it's like, why would you not? Because realistically, their chances are very slim of winning. I could very much so guarantee that it is better to win $1 million than have like a 1 out of 100 chance of winning $5 million. And even if they get like a consolation, it's probably gonna be like probably no more than 50,000. But at the same time, it's like, is it worth getting all the backlash? Because realistically, if most of us were in this position, we would have 100% buckled and gave and sacrificed their team for $1 million. Because even if you guys said that you wouldn't, it's like, it's hard to believe. Now, so none of the captains took the $1 million, which I was shocked. I thought for sure one of them would. As I saw that, none of the captains took the $1 million. And I don't want to accuse this episode or this portion of being scripted. It definitely did feel like though it was. Now I'm not going to accuse it. I do think it was legit that none of the captains wanted to take the $1 million, which is fair. I don't know, because it did feel like something. It's like they just wanted to shock everyone and subvert everyone's expectations. But obviously, at the same time, I also could very much so buy the fact that none of the captains thought that it was worth it. Which does feel weird when you also don't get eliminated. At the same time, you also might get hated on so much because social media exists. I don't know. It's like I think I said this last episode, I would have taken the $1 million if I was in that situation. I know technically you can go with the plea deals of, hey, if you win, you have to give me $1 million. If you win, you have to give me half. But even then, you still only technically have a 1 in 4 chance of getting it, because if all 4 captains were like this, what if no one on your team does well? It also brings up a good question later in the series. Would you vote them out if it came down to it? Because like, let's just say it was like a survival of the fittest, final 2, this person that could have very much so eliminated you and yourself, and you were that person that could have gotten eliminated. It's like, and let's just say everyone else had the vote. It's like, do you automatically just pick the person that didn't give up $1 million for them, or do you vote it for the person that could have been eliminated but didn't? Because it's like, well, I feel like there should be some incentives, and I mean, given that this is episode 3 and there was another challenge, there was kind of some incentives to an extent for the captains. It's like, how far should the incentives go for these captains who refuse to give up $1 million? And it's a question where it's like, I wouldn't even know. There's definitely not any definitive answer, but I would like to hear your thoughts. What's your thoughts on, or how big of an incentive should these captains get? Or do you guys think, oh, maybe they shouldn't get it because it was their decision? I don't know, because I feel like obviously on paper, oh, it should be a no-brainer decision to give up your team for $1 million. Because realistically, they probably didn't even know a lot of their teammates that well, minus maybe a few. At the same time, it's like the peer pressure is also, I mean, I imagine it was at a unprecedented level. But yeah, like, I don't blame the captains why they didn't want to take it. I honestly kind of hope that whoever wins gives their captain $1 million. I don't think that's gonna happen. At the same time, it's like, do all 4 captains deserve it for the person that wins, or only the captain that didn't? Or do none of them or deserve it, where they just all had their shine and they just didn't give it up? I don't know, like, I personally think the captains kind of deserve $1 million from their team, from their teammate who wins, or if they themselves win, of course they get $5 million. Also, I was thinking, if they were to eliminate their team, maybe they could just give all their teammates a few thousand. And in some ways, that also feels like a cheap escape. So, I don't know. Like, it is something that is kind of hard to wrap my brain around, but I still loved the aspect of none of the captains were willing to sacrifice their team for $1 million. I thought the suspense and build-up and foreshadowing was all perfect. I thought it was great. So anyways, enough with all that first part. There was still a whole another part of the episode. So then there was a challenge where I believe it was just a beanbag race, where it was just a relay, where the winning team got immunity for the next challenge. Fair enough. And then we go to that challenge. And this challenge was also amazing to watch. And also, the immunity, in some ways, kind of was maybe worth thousands of dollars, because they got their own VIP room. They did not have to suffer for 5 hours. Because yes, next challenge was a challenge that in some cases people did suffer for 5 hours. Because it was one where there were 3 people in a prison, and one person had to chain themselves. And if none of them could, they would all be eliminated. But in that, they also got to call the Mr. Beast crew to ask anything they want. So it's like, obviously some of them felt lost and just didn't want to even make a call. But some had a very easy decision, making a call, maybe saying, could we have some cards, could we have a dice, could we bring a game? And then obviously, there were also other teams, which I actually kind of didn't expect. I didn't even know they were like allowed to do, like when he said they could request anything, I didn't think he would be this literal. Some requested big pool parties, some requested just a lot of fun. Which, to be fair, if I was in that situation with 2 of my friends, or in some case family, because there was some where it's like they were in the same room with their brother, I mean, obviously, I'd probably want to try to have some fun at no cost. Which, it's like, when I was hearing this, it's like, I was kind of picturing, what if someone requested $1 billion? Which, obviously, I think they knew that even though Mr. Beast and the crew were giving them what they want, I think they knew there was, like, definitely a limit. But at the same time, it also did feel like an unlimited money. But yes, anyways, the challenge, I mean, I guess you could say series of challenges, but anyways, this challenge in particular, though, was very intense. It was definitely, I mean, in some ways it had me on the edge of my seat. Because, like, I didn't really have someone who I was completely rooting for at this point. But in a way, I also kind of wanted one of the 4 captains to win the whole thing, given that they give down $1 million to let their teammates fight. on in the challenge. If you had asked me who I was cheering for at that point, Jeremy. I'll just say that up front. Mainly because he was also in a previous Mr. Beast video, the last to leave Circle 500,000, and then he made it to the tag portion, which was the final 10, and he got 3rd place. So like I also kind of wanted to see him win because he got 3rd place and he was very close. But yeah, like at this point I guess I was cheering for Jeremy. I really didn't want any of the captains to get eliminated. And like I thought earlier, some of them definitely were given a little more of the benefit of the doubt of their cellmates were being like, because you sacrificed and turned out 1 million, we're gonna let you not have to chain yourself, and it'll just be the 2 of us. And I believe 3 of the 4 captains said yes to that. I believe one of them refused that, and then much to my surprise, they actually got eliminated. And they said they were happy that they didn't win 1 million, which, to be fair enough, because money obviously doesn't always buy happiness. At the same time, I don't know, because it does in some ways feel slightly hard to believe, but at the same time, I could also respect that they weren't just there for the money. But yeah, it did actually get me a little bit teared up just seeing people getting chained in the challenge, which we actually never saw them get out of the cell, which of course they obviously probably did, because it would be like, I believe, illegal to just trap them there for like days. I don't know. But yeah, anyways, the challenge was very intense. It was very cool to watch. Okay, the one thing though I didn't like about it, and it was very funny and very intense, but in some ways I just kind of hated it for some weird reason. The 2 brothers teaming up to get this person out. I don't know what it was, because like obviously like there's, I think I talked about this in episode 1, the villain part of it, where obviously in reality shows you kind of have these quote unquote villains, or in Mr. Beast challenges, like in the age 1 to 100 fight for 250k, you obviously had 42, who was considered the unofficial villain of the video. And obviously I loved 42's presence in that video. I wasn't really cheering for him to win, but he was definitely fun to watch. But for some reason, I actually felt like I kind of just hated these 2 brothers, because it's like, realistically, let's just say it's like 2 brothers and one person you barely know, and one of them has to be eliminated. I feel like it should probably be one of the 2 siblings, because technically the other sibling could still benefit. If the other sibling were to win, they could split it. They could do like a 4 million, 1 million split. I don't know, because like realistically, if I was in a challenge with like my brother and someone who I barely know, I don't know if I'd actually be the one that would volunteer, but I would let that person who I barely know, I would let them get the immunity. Because realistically, they kind of are still on the same team. Because like with family, and I guess in some cases friends, in like challenges like this, they are kind of the same in some ways, if you guys know what I mean. Because technically their friend, family, I mean spouse, or if they're ever in it with their kids, which I believe the only time that was ever the case was where they were going against each other, was technically the kids versus adults video. It's like, in some ways they are kind of on the same team in a way, even if they're technically competing for only one of them to get the money. Which also has the question, it's like, what if they were in the final 2? If it was like maybe 2 family members in the final 2 in the Mr. Beast challenge, I wonder what that would be like. But yeah, anyways, this episode was definitely very intense. The challenge, that 5-hour challenge, was definitely very intense. And then obviously at the end you got a peek of the island. and we only saw one helicopter go to the island, and then next episode, obviously, the remaining people were fighting for their spot on the island. So, that is episode 3 of Mr. Beast Games. I really love this episode. It's easily my favorite of the show so far. I would give it a 9.5. Only thing really holding back was those two brothers. I mean, I don't know, it just feels weird, but I just really did not like them, and I hope that, or from that point on, I hoped that they would lose. Which, obviously, I'm not going to spoil the outcome of episode 4, even though it's right out. But yeah, anyways, episode 3 of the show was amazing. So, thanks for watching. Feel free to share your thoughts on episode 3 of Mr. Beast Games down below in the comments. And what was your thoughts on, like, really the first part? Do you agree that they should have took in the million? Or do you think it was the right decision that they should have, just not sacrifice their team? I'd like to hear all that down below in the comments. Now, thanks for watching, and peace out.